The Halo sandbox is often praised for its golden triangle, the perfect dance between guns, grenades, and melee. But if we're being honest, that triangle has a massive weight pulling on one side. In the right hands, there's one tool in every Halo game that handles every problem from 10 paces to 100. I'm talking about utility weapons. In the context of Halo, a utility weapon is truly the universal solution. It's reliable, precise, and predictable. To qualify, a weapon generally needs to meet these three criteria. Firstly, it needs to be versatile. It has to be effective at almost every range. Secondly, we need to have headshot finishers. It must be capable of a quick one-tap kill via knocking on a victim's noggin once shields are popped. Finally, this weapon has to be consistent. It needs to act as a baseline that defines the pace of a game. While using utilities in conjunction with other weapons such as a plasma pistol may make them more effective, they should also be strong enough on their own to help you scavenge around. Today, we are stripping back the flashy alien tech and the power weapons to look at the workhorses that win these wars. We are diving into how the M6D Magnum from Combat Evolved set a standard that every sequel has struggled to balance ever since, the long-standing mechanical debate between the battle rifle and the DMR, the different ways Bungie and later 343 tried fixing things players didn't feel were broken, and finally, whether having one perfect gun, one perfect utility weapon actually makes the gun better, or if it turns a diverse sci-fi armory into a one-note shooting gallery. As a quick disclaimer, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the campaign side of things, with multiplayer, little tidbits of info sprinkled here and there. But seeing as Campaign Evolved is only campaign, I figured this just makes sense. If you look at the original box art for Halo Combat Evolved, you'll find Master Chief front and center clutching the MA5B assault rifle. As a matter of fact, apart from Halo 2 and technically maybe Halo 5, each and every time we see Master Chief on a mainline titles box art, he's carrying some version of the assault rifle. The simple act of placing this particular weapon front and center alongside Chief has the effect of most everyone seeing the AR as Chief's main weapon. In CE, it had a massive 60-round magazine, decent spray, and was designed to be the everything tool for a new type of shooter. However, as many of you may know based on countless hours of trudging through Installation 04, the assault rifle tends to be left behind in terms of what you end up using most. That's due in part to the existence of a certain sidearm turned hand cannon. Our unlikely hero, the M6D Magnum, was never meant to be the star of the show. As the legend goes, Jason Jones tweaked the pistol's constants right before the Gold Master of CE was completed. By increasing the weapon's damage range and coupled with the pre-existing 2x scope and 3-shot kill capacity, this secondary quickly overtook the top dog position. The AR, intended to be the jack of all trades, was relegated to mowing down flood forms. The utility role was stolen by a sidearm, and Halo's combat loop was changed forever before the first disc even hit a shelf. When Halo 2 went into production, Bungie knew that clearly the assault rifle from CE wasn't going to become the de facto utility weapon anytime soon. So, they ditched it and transplanted the internals of the AR and put it into an SMG's body instead as a secondary. More on that later. This left the issue of the Magnum being the main weapon when it was only meant to be a sidearm. Not to mention, Bungie also wanted to introduce dual wielding because Master Chief holding two SMGs makes for a great game cover. But you can't have a scoped 3-shot kill gun in each hand unless you want to break the game's first online multiplayer. Their solution was thus two-pronged. The first part was the introduction of the BR-55 battle rifle. Rather than outright transplanting the M6D's internals into a rifle's body, the team opted to have the BR-55 feature a rhythmic 3-round burst firing mode instead. The intent was to create a mid-range king that required more active engagement than the CE pistol. This decision then effectively swapped the meta from semi-auto weapons in multiplayer to just the BR for years to come. The second part of the solution was to mutilate and desecrate the M6D, turning it into the M6C. Rather than having a gun with the magic of scoping in and having hard-hitting rounds, the M6C now had no scope, took 13 shots to the head to kill in multiplayer, but at least the fire rate was increased. Obviously, this meant the gun suffered in campaign as well. This was also the era of the Covenant Carbine, the first real threat to UNSC dominance. While the BR had the stopping power, the Carbine offered higher ammo availability in the campaign, forcing a choice. Do you keep the God-fearing American-made better gun with no bullets, or the just good enough gun you can find on every dead jackal heathen. When it comes to Halo 3, Bungie took the BR and added a bit of a skill gap to be mastered that still irritates many longtime fans. They removed the bullet's hit scan. The BR-55 HB fired projectiles, which actually took time to reach their targets. Halo 2 also had projectiles, but the bullet velocity and weapons were high enough to simulate the effect of hit scans. Halo 3 just lowered the velocity a lot. This meant you actually had to lead your shots at distance, and it meant that for the longest time, playing Halo 3's multiplayer on the copy that came with ODST, I thought the BR was utterly useless. In my defense, I was like 6. When it came to this game's Magnum, don't worry. Bungie also managed to make it worse. Bungie took all the things that did work in Halo 2 and then threw them out the window as well. The M6G2, which took design cues from CE's Magnum, looks like a return to the golden days of that Magnum's lethality. But that was just to make you feel false hope. Instead, this gun plays like Halo 2's Magnum, just slower firing and therefore even more tedious to use. I get what they were going for to make this gun feel more balanced, increasing the weapon's damage and slowing down the firing to be a little bit closer to that CE style of firing. But this weapon it ends up hurting my soul. You remember the assault rifle? Well, it came back for Halo 3, but was a pea shooter, so you could only use it if you didn't know any better, or to strip shields then follow up with the BR. Even then, a charged plasma pistol shot tends to be more efficient anyways. ODST's arrival gave us a fragmented utility for the campaign. The M7S suppressed SMG was a radical departure from the battle rifle, the CE Magnum, and even the assault rifle. Rather than trying to give the ODST player a single weapon to use for all engagements, it truly separated the two different sides of a weapon's lethality into the suppressed SMG and the suppressed M6C Magnum. It forced you into a dual utility mindset where the SMG handled the heavy lifting and the automag with its one-shot headshot capacity handled the cleanup. Sure, as mentioned earlier, utilities work better when being helped out by things such as plasma pistols and rifles, but they typically can get by just fine on their own. The suppressed SMG and automag could not. When Halo Reach came around in 2010, Bungie was feeling antsy about staying on board the Halo franchise. With this being their last installment for the series, they decided to get experimental. In Reach, they replaced the BR with the M392 DMR and introduced Weapon Bloom. Basically, every shot of your weapon causes the reticle you see on screen to increase in size or bloom, therefore lowering the precision of the weapon you are using. The developer intent was to force players to fire deliberate, timed shots. This helped create more of a skill curve to be mastered so that people mindlessly spamming the trigger would get the grand opportunity to be cannon fodder. Those who mastered Weapon Bloom would then get to enjoy being on the other end of the barrel. This in turn made the needle rifle a massive competitor. It had less bloom and a super combine explosion that made it arguably more effective against the game's high health elites compared to the DMR. The introduction of Bloom also provided a much-needed balancing act to the Magnum that players so sorely wanted to return to its CE days. Now the Magnum could be hard-hitting and it could have scoping. No matter how powerful and how accurate the Magnum became, Bungie knew they could just rely on Bloom to balance it. The problem was that the Bloom was unbelievably strong on the Magnum, making it not fun to play with. When 343 Industries took over, they didn't just want one utility weapon. They wanted all of them. They gave us the BR and the DMR simultaneously, as well as the Magnum in small doses. The DMR and the BR were basically the best versions of themselves in operation, and the Magnum itself had a much lowered bloom so it could actually hurt people or enemies. When you take the DMR, the BR, and the Magnum, and then you add in the AR as well, you have a lot of acronyms. And it also means that your ecosystem of guns is cluttered. In the campaign, this led to a sameness that hurt the identity of the sandbox. You spent half the game swapping between two human rifles that did almost the exact same thing, which is why most players just defaulted to whichever one had more ammo in the crate nearby. To be fair, that allowed for more player freedom to choose what they wanted to run with, except the significantly lowered ammo carrying capacity in Halo 4 meant that you couldn't really stay with your weapon of choice. Halo 5 is where 343 really got bold. They finally tried to fulfill the original CE promise of making the assault rifle a true utility weapon. They did this through 3 specific mechanical changes. 343 made it so that automatic weapons had headshot damage multipliers. For the first time, the AR skill roof has been raised. If you tracked an unshielded head, the TTK plummeted because you were doing more damage. Secondly, we had crouch stabilization. We had a mechanic where crouching significantly decreases weapon bloom, encouraging players to use the AR like a mid-range tactical tool rather than a spray and pray hose. Finally, we have one of the most controversial additions to the franchise that 343 made with ADS, or Smart Link as it's called in Halo 5. With the AR alongside every other weapon in Halo 5 having this ADS effect, once laughable engagement ranges became well within the newly defined red reticle ranges, making things like the AR or the shotgun incredibly effective at ranges they never should have been. Combined with the M6H2 Magnum, DMR, and the BR85, Halo 5 had the most crowded utility meta in history, and the AR got to become a legitimate strategic choice for providing covering fire and descoping enemies. Finally, we have Halo Infinite. The BR75 is the legacy anchor. It's what the veterans want both in operation and in aesthetic. But the MA40 assault rifle is the best it has ever been. It's lethal, reliable, and keeps the golden triangle of grenades, melee, and guns intact. They moved away from the precision AR gimmicks of Halo 5 like the crouching buffs, and instead just made the gun punchy enough with lowered bloom to hold its own against the BR in the open world. Alongside the BR and AR, the Commando full auto rifle joined the lineup for campaign. When used correctly to control the Commando's recoil and bloom, the rifle is both completely capable of stripping shields and one-tapping heads. With all these rifles, you shouldn't forget the magic of the sidekick, which is a true continuation of Halo 2's design philosophy for a Magnum. If you've been paying attention, you might have realized 343 Industries spent a lot of time trying to take all the previous utility weapons from the AR to the DMR and make them equally viable in a campaign playthrough. A couple of times I even said this cluttered the sandbox, which to an extent is true. However, as we saw in both Halo 5 and now in Infinite, 343 put in great effort to still have defined roles for these weapons through their ranges of engagement. They did this through things such as weapon bloom, red reticle range, which is the distance within which your weapon's reticle will turn red and bullet magnetism will aim your shots, and levels of zoom for the weapons you have. As a result of these efforts, I firmly believe the campaign sandbox, which was relatively stripped down compared to past titles, is at its strongest in Infinite. All weapons excel at their ideal engagement distances, which helps feed into you as the player playing out that role you want most in the campaign. While this may take away from the scavenging weapons aspect of Halo, the trade-off of having more player freedom makes sense. The evolution of the Halo utility weapon is a now 25-year-long tug-of-war. We started with an accidental god gun with the Magnum, we moved into a specialized burst rifle era, experimented with some fairness with reach and bloom, and eventually landed in a world where 343/Halo Studios is trying to make every UNSC gun fit very specific roles, and finally making some weapons like the AR actually lethal. Time will tell whether the rapidly approaching campaign Evolved perfects the balancing act of including all those weapons we are seeing in the trailers. While we wait for July, do me a solid and touch that like button, maybe even press it, and subscribe.